Hey guys, it's just Chelsea jumping in here before we get started on this awesome new series to talk to you a little bit about our sponsor making it possible, Betterment. This series is all about adapting your psychology to your money so that no matter what happens financially, you are best prepared to handle it. And as we get close to the end of the year, there is no better time to make sure that your money is working for you and not stressing you out. Luckily, Betterment makes it easy to invest and save for what you care about. Their automated technology keeps you invested in expert-built, diversified portfolios, so you can rest assured your money is where it should be. With Betterment, you can keep building wealth while enjoying the season, ready for whatever comes next. Get started, be invested, sign up in minutes. Head to betterment.com/TFD or click the link in the description box to sign up.
Hello again, TFD fam. I'm Kara Perez, founder of Kara Explores Money, author of Money for Change, back for part 2 in our series on money and mental health. And today we're talking about our single friends. We know them, we love them, but how are we treating them? Now, I personally am long-term partnered. I have been with my partner for almost 12 years, but we're not married. And we keep our financial lives 100% separate. We don't have any shared bank accounts, savings accounts, or investment accounts, and we don't split our household expenses 50-50. I pay more towards certain bills, largely because I own the home that we live in, and the house is just mine. It is not something that we purchased together. Not being legally married means that there are certain financial benefits my partner and I are not eligible for, such as inheriting one another's Social Security benefits or being able to get tax breaks if we filed our taxes jointly. But of course, simply living together means that we each benefit financially from each other. And that alone is a big difference between me and a single person who lives by themselves. So why are we talking about single people and their finances today? Well, firstly, it's a hugely overlooked area of personal finance education and advice. Most personal finance advice defaults to being a 2-income household, which is particularly strange when you realize that more and more Americans are opting for being single or, like myself, partnered but not married. There is an increasing divide in US culture along partnered lines, especially for women. Nearly 118 million Americans, or about 46% of those over 18 years old, are single according to the US Census Bureau. But that percentage is actually much higher for women. A record-breaking 52% of them are unmarried or separated as of 2021, according to a recent report from Wells Fargo Economics. The growing number of Americans who have never married, either because they decided to get married later in life or forgo getting hitched altogether, have driven the rise of single women in the US. The share of never married women increased 20% over the past decade, according to Wells Fargo analysis of US Department of Commerce data. And of course, we have to talk about the wealth gap, because not all single people are living the same financial life. All singledom is not created equal, especially when it comes to gender parity. Women face not only a gender wage gap in the United States, earning about 83 cents per dollar to men, but they also run up against a wealth gap too. The median household income for married couples was $106,921 as of 2021, according to census data. Single women earn a median of $51,168, while single men make $70,525. We used to have the cultural expectation that women would follow a singular path. They would get married, have kids, buy a house with a white picket fence, and largely depend on their male partner for financial security. Very June Cleaver, very Charlotte York. But both our culture and our financial reality in the United States has changed very drastically in the last 60 years, and most especially in the last 10 years. It is no longer feasible for most Americans to live on one income, especially if you do want to hit other milestones such as buying a house or having children. I know that personally as a homeowner, I could not afford my mortgage, my home insurance, and my property taxes comfortably without my partner here to pay a portion of that. I could probably pay for everything in my life without my partner to supplement it, but it would mean no longer saving or investing, which would put my own financial future in a much more precarious position. And this is one of the big financial challenges that single people today have to contend with. And while the cultural expectation for every woman to get married and have kids has absolutely loosened, it has not disappeared altogether. And I can tell you from personal experience that a lot of people feel some type of way about the fact that my partner and I are together but not married. I have had people express open judgment of my relationship, telling me that they don't consider it as serious as if we were married, despite how long we've been together and the milestones that we've achieved as a couple. Some people also clearly pity me, though I will say I do think they try and hide it. But it's as if they think, oh, she hasn't been able to get him down the aisle, therefore she's not actually worthy of being in a relationship at all. Women are taught from a very young age to center men, and getting a man, especially marrying that man, is still seen as the default dream for straight women. Weddings are still commonly referred to as the biggest day of a woman's life, and culturally, we still talk about how little girls dream of getting married one day. And of course, we as a culture prioritize men's needs and ambitions well over women's. As a result, single and unmarried people are still seen as weirdos. I can't tell you how many people see me, even though I am in a relationship with a man, as not having been truly chosen because I don't have a ring on my finger and we don't have a marriage certificate. And I think we've all been single at some point and in a conversation with someone where the first and most urgent question is, so, are you seeing anyone? The single tax is very real, and it's about more than just money. The literal single tax is this thing where everything about your life is more expensive simply because you don't have someone to split any of the costs with. Think about going on vacation and renting a hotel room. If you're doing that as a single person, that $800 hotel room, you have to pay for that entirely yourself. But if you're splitting that room with your partner, you only have to pay $400. And this shows up in less obvious ways as well, like being able to piggyback onto your partner's health insurance, which generally has lower costs, or even, as I mentioned before, having these long-term benefits like being able to inherit Social Security benefits after your partner passes away. And the single tax is not just limited to those of us living in the United States. A survey of 3,000 people found 44% of single respondents say the cost of bills is one of their biggest financial challenges. That's hardly surprising, given recent government data shows electricity prices increased by 4.5% in the 12 months to June 2025, while average UK private rents rose by 7% in the 12 months to May 2025. Other bills, like council tax, aren't divided fairly for single occupants, who only have a 25% reduction in cost for living alone. Single 18 to 40-year-olds were also found to save half of that saved by those in relationships, £301 per month compared to $609. And just under a third, or 29%, of single people reported not having an emergency fund, compared to less than 1 in 6, or 16%, of those in a relationship. That's from a study out of the United Kingdom, so we can see that this is something that people are grappling with outside of the United States. But back home here in the United States, cost of living has been at the forefront of the economic and political conversation for all of 2025. We have a housing crisis where there's not enough housing stock, and the stock that's available is increasingly expensive. And everything from electricity bills to groceries have gotten more expensive this year. And here's a specific example. Here's the cost of a year's worth of expenses in New York City, according to data out of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. The figures are measured in 2022 inflation-adjusted dollars. Single-person household, $39,130 a year. Two-person household, both working, $56,033 a year. Notably, a couple's typical expenses aren't merely double what a single person pays. That's because expenses like food, transportation, and entertainment can offer cost efficiencies that favor couples who split their expenses. Take food, for example. As anyone who has ever shopped at something like Costco or Sam's Club knows, buying in bulk can often mean getting cheaper prices. And while a family or a couple can take advantage of those bulk sizes because there's more people to eat the food, a single person may really struggle with bringing home 16 avocados and actually eating them all before they go bad. So in practice, this means the two people can be living in the same town, working the same job, coming from the same family and economic backgrounds, and have two radically different lived financial experiences depending on whether or not they have a partner. Delta Airlines, United Airlines, and American Airlines were charging what some described as a, quote, tax on single travelers on certain routes, Thrifty Travelers analysis found, with a fare doubling in at least one instance. And travel data tells us on things like tours and cruises, seat prices are based on two people. So if you're just a single person trying to have a good time, you're likely going to pay more than someone who is in a couple. But there is also the social single tax. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't talk about because they don't really realize it's happening, or ways that they themselves might be upholding it. Simply put, as a single person, your needs, achievement, and big life moments are always put on a back burner compared to your partnered friends. Often while being told to just keep your chin up because your person is out there and someday you too will reach the pinnacle of actually being partnered. I think the most classic example of this is wedding culture. And while this is definitely financial in nature, it is also quite cultural and personal as well. It is the cultural norm to celebrate partnership in the United States. We celebrate couples getting engaged, we have wedding showers, we have bachelorette trips, and then the actual wedding itself. And over the last decade, a lot of these celebrations have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. It's no longer the expectation that a couple of nights before the wedding, you and your girls will go out for a few drinks and we'll call that your bachelorette party. The expectation now for someone's wedding is you'll get on a plane and meet me in Nashville. You'll get on a plane and meet me in the Caribbean to celebrate my bachelorette. And then you'll get on a plane again a couple months later to come to my actual wedding, leading the celebration of someone else's wedding to cost individuals thousands of dollars. And this gets quite emotionally complicated for single or partnered but unmarried people because there is no expectation that these friends will do the same for you because you may not ever get married. And honestly, it is hard to talk about this discrepancy without being read as bitter. But I will again share from my personal life. I am the only unmarried person in my group of high school friends. Some of my high school friends got married a decade ago at this point. I've gone to all of their weddings and I've spent thousands to do so. And of course, I was happy to do it. But here I am, not sure if I will ever get married myself. And even if I do get married, I'm going to be an older bride. My friends' lives have moved on to now not just being married, but becoming parents. So their schedules have changed. Their time is allocated for in a way that it didn't used to be. So even if I do get married, I'm not totally sure they would be able to come even if they wanted to. And notably, even though I've done really cool things that I'm very proud of, such as buying my house and writing a book, nobody sent me gifts or made a registry for those. And that's just because we don't see those accomplishments as anywhere near as important as getting married. Another aspect of the social single tax is this idea that your partner is just out there somewhere and your life has to be on hold until you find them. We tell someone, oh, just keep looking, you'll find someone, as if the life that they're living while they're single doesn't matter. As if they have to put on hold their hopes and dreams and plans until they can do those things with another person. And honestly, as if everything they ever achieve while single doesn't matter as much as not only finding that partner, but doing things with that partner. And this cultural expectation really grinds my gears personally because the data tells us that single, unmarried women are the happiest people in society. We know that married women do more household labor than unmarried women. And we know that married women are more likely to experience anxiety and depression than unmarried women. But the patriarchy is so deep in so many of our brains that we really do still not only center men, but idealize a relationship with a man. We absolutely must move away from the idea that a man is a prize to a woman and that anyone, regardless of gender, needs to be in a relationship in order to be recognized as a full human. Because the more we continue to believe that single people are basically plug and play into the social fabric of our lives, the more we continue to deprioritize them on their own. Single people often get forced into becoming the flexible one, the one who will come to us, the one who will work around our schedule and our goals, or the ones that will emotionally or maybe even physically support us through our challenges in our relationships or with our children. This is particularly unfair because while your single friend is providing you with support, they will then have to go home alone to a place where no one else is doing the dishes, no one else has run the vacuum, no one else has made their lunch for tomorrow. They are their own support systems. Single people also don't have anyone who is expected to solely prioritize them, the way that those of us in partnerships have the expectation that our partner will prioritize us over friends or work. So when a single person inevitably does need support, they don't have the same reliance on their married friends to show up for them in that way. Their needs as a single person will always come second to a partner or a child. In my approach to financial education, I talk a lot about community building because I believe that community building is key to financial planning. I always like to say, yes, you need to save and invest for your future so you can pay for healthcare, but you also need someone who can drive you to the hospital. And part of my approach to community building is looking outside of the nuclear family to build relationships with people. And I encourage other people to prioritize their platonic and aromantic relationships. Now, I personally practice community building in a lot of different ways, through volunteering, through going to local meetups, through getting involved in causes and issues that I'm interested in and care about. Having platonic relationships is something that a lot of Americans are currently struggling with, as evidenced by our loneliness crisis. Now, some of community building is going to literally be leaving your house and trying to meet new people, but another fantastic place for those of us who are partnered or married to start is to begin prioritizing their single friends in a way that they haven't before. Reach out to them and support them where they are in their lives. Celebrate the non-romantic milestones that they are hitting. Check in on them on a random Tuesday to see how it's going. If you're a single person watching this, here's what I suggest. Consider not just what you can or can't financially afford, but also what you can or can't emotionally afford. Be honest with yourself about your budget for that. Think intentionally about community building, chosen family, and reciprocal friendships. And treat joy as a necessity, not a luxury. Your fun money isn't optional, it's your life. And if you're partnered in watching this video, here's what you can be doing to support your single friends. Stop assuming their life is on pause or hasn't started. Offer reciprocity in emotional labor. Check in on them, ask how they're doing. Tell them you have space to help hold the hard things or feelings or responsibilities that they have to deal with. For example, if your husband is pretty handy with tools and your single friend doesn't have the bandwidth to hire someone to fix their bathroom door, send that man over to their house. Be financially conscious. If you're organizing group trips, events, or celebrations, acknowledge that splitting the costs is not neutral. So be creative in considering a more equitable solution for costs. Include them in your family unit intentionally, not as a last-minute invite. Dinner invites, holidays, help during busy season. Don't let your nuclear family become a walled garden, only allowed to be peeked over by your fellow partnered friends who just understand better. Don't prioritize coupledom over community. Don't make your single friend the constant third, fifth, or seventh wheel in your group couple friend plans. Now, if you're online the same way I am, you've probably noticed there has been a lot of conversation recently about how to build a village. This is something I myself have made a lot of content about, and I know Chelsea really made a whole bunch of content about this, especially in promotion of her new fabulous book, Having People Over. Of course, the phrase, "it takes a village to raise a child," is centered on this idea of children. But as you think about building your village, you have to make space for those who are coupled and those who are single. And I encourage you to ask yourself, how can we move away from our current cultural model of the nuclear family to a wider, broader definition of supporting all types of people in all types of relationships or lack thereof? It is my strong opinion that the future cannot rely on the nuclear family alone. And if we insist that it does, we miss out on building incredible relationships with people, and we miss out on building support for ourselves. Single people and partnered people need to build community together. We can't be off in our own little islands just because of our relationship status. And that's going to look a lot of different ways. It's going to look like shared childcare, financial transparency, celebrating non-traditional milestones, acknowledging that the world is more expensive for single people, having family dinners, sharing skills and talents outside of your own home. We should be as ambitious and as excited about our platonic friendships as we are our romantic relationships. One thing that I have really leaned into in my own personal life in the last 3 or 4 years is building strong community and particularly building strong friendships. I've moved around a lot in my adulthood. I've lived in Connecticut, Texas, North Carolina, and now Massachusetts. And that means I've had to go out of my way to make friends every single place I've lived. And I can tell you that broadening my own personal definition of family to include chosen family and to include people that are making different life choices than I am has only enriched my life. I'm 37, and one of the friends that I speak to most frequently is a 25-year-old. We are completely different generations. She's single, I'm partnered. She has a traditional W-2 job, I'm an entrepreneur, but we have a lot in common when it comes to our values and our interests, and we both make the decision to prioritize our relationship with each other. She doesn't live near me, so in this relationship, we have a bi-weekly phone date, and it's on my calendar every 2 weeks. We're literally going on vacation together next year. It's very exciting. Being single is still seen as socially taboo, so the last thing that those of us who are partnered need to do is make our single friends' lives harder, whether that means socially or financially. And luckily, what I've found as someone who has really prioritized community building in my own life is that people want to connect, people want to hang out, people are down to be friends, and they are down to make room for you in their life. All right, y'all, that's it from me today. This concludes part 2 in our 3-part video series. Thank you to TFD for having me, and make sure that you hit subscribe so that you don't miss part 3 in this series.